All right, guys, I've had a lot of requests for this video, and I finally got around, got a little free time, got caught up, and here it is tonight. A lot of folks ask me, hey, how do you engrave tumblers using the XTool D1 and lightburn? And there's a little bit of issue with setting it up. It's really not all that complicated, but there is some information out there that makes it a lot more difficult than it has to be. And so tonight I'm going to show you the settings that I use. I'm going to show you the setup process and show you the product of the engraving. Now I'm going to be using some practice tumblers for the first few just to demonstrate some things, and then we're going to move on from there. I've got a little short burn right here going now, and as soon as we get back I'm going to show you how this guy turns out. All right, guys, to start off, I want to point out to everybody one thing that you need to remember. Working with a rotary, there's a lot of math to be done to get everything exact, unless you just have that perfect combination of the size of the round object and the steps on the rotary. So my advice, if you're not really good at the math and you don't want to have to sit down and figure out exactly the number of steps based on the diameter of the cup, stay away from round objects, because the least little bit of deviation will show up in round objects. Especially text, you're not going to notice it. Any kind of most designs, you're not going to notice it, but if it has a round object in it, you're going to have to get the math exactly right and dial your machine in exactly right to make a perfect circle using the rotary. And it can be done, but it requires a lot more work and it's a lot more headache. So with that being said, straight out of the box, no special adjustments. I just set the rotary up with my XTool D1. This is my old 10 watt that I've had for a little over a year now. This is my original XTool D1. It's not the Pro version, doesn't have all the sensors or anything. I am running a ComGrow Air Assist on it for now, and I've got it set up on the table just so it'll be a little easier for everybody to see. That's not normally where I do my tumblers. I do recommend you do them in an enclosure, but I've got the door open and it's nice and windy outside, and I wanted to do that so that I could kind of show you everything that I'm doing and kind of go through the process. I will be, toward the end of the video, we'll get into the computer and I'll kind of go through the settings of the rotary that I'm using. If you watch the video and you like the results that I'm having, then you can go back and replicate those settings. But keep in mind, depending on the size of whatever it is you're engraving, there are going to be some variations because you've got to have the gear ratio, so to speak, has to be just right all the way to the surface of the material for it to be perfect. So stay away from circles. That's my recommendation. But there's the burn that I just did, and it is slightly taller than it is wide because of the size of this tumbler and the spacing on my rollers. I didn't readjust the rollers, so it is slightly wider. And when I say slightly, I mean it's not really that noticeable. This is a practice cup. You can tell by the other image of May up there, but that's what I just done. That's with the 10 watt D1. And if you want to write this down, guys, power settings is going to be 70 millimeters per second on black at 100% output. And the reason I specify black, different colors burn differently based on the reflectivity of that color. Blues, whites, and sometimes the yellows are not going to do as well. You're going to have to slow down. On whites, you may have to go as low as 50 millimeters per second at 100% output on a 10 watt machine. The mid-range colors, you may have to go down to 60. You don't want to go too slow, like on the black. You don't want to go too slow on the black because instead of getting that silver shiny finish right there, if you go too slow, you will actually mark the stainless steel, which will result in it looking kind of gray or real dingy. So in order to get that nice clean shine like that, you're going to have exactly the right setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the camera over here and just kind of show you. I'm trying to get it out of this light. I'm right under the light. Kind of show you how I've got this thing set up, how I've configured it, and the way I'm operating. And like I said, we're going to do some from the computer. I'm going to go over the setup process there as well. So here's the setup that I've got going, guys. This is the old school rotary that came with my D1 originally when I purchased it. Like I said, a little over a year ago. This is pre-RA2. So this is the only rotary that I currently have for the XTool D1. But I use it on tumblers and stuff like that. I've got another one on order from a different company that I'm going to get for doing rolling pins and such. But I wanted to do this video because there's been a lot of people asking about it. And the videos that I did a long time ago on the XTool D1 and tumblers, folks seem to like those, and we're asking for more. Two big things that I will tell you as far as orientating your rotary. Make sure that the motor, the stepper motor, needs to be on the right, and you need to be able to read this text right here from the front of the machine. So if you can't read this text properly from the front of the machine, then your rotary is flipped one way or the other. If you flip that rotary around, you will get like a mirror image of whatever it is you're burning, and that is not desired. I am using my interchangeable jig kit to make sure that everything stays squared and true. I also have spacers that I've made that go into here to space up for the different size tumblers that I do. So what I'm going to do, we just did my little Clack Shack logo here. So I'm just going to spin this, and this is a practice cup, guys. This is one that I test logos on. I'm going to try to find some empty space here and just do some small burns just to demonstrate to you the process. I'm going to go right here beside May and try to put me another burn there. You'll notice on my machine I have little timing marks on both sides right here. That's for tumblers. I know that when I put this tumbler on here, I can pull that cradle back to there, pull my gantry back to there, and that's the center of that tumbler. Well, then what I'm going to do, I've got my machine set, and let me read the settings out to you so that I don't misquote. You are going to start from current position on lightburn, and we'll show you this side of it here in just a minute. And you also are going to change your starting position, but you're going to want to rotate your design 90 degrees so that the top of the design is toward the top of the tumbler. And then you're going to want to change your starting position to the upper right hand corner, which technically is going to be the upper left hand corner of your design. All right, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit this frame right here, and well, I'm probably going to need to power the machine up first, guys. Forgot I had turned it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the way I've got lightburn configured. My machine, if I take this laser and I use the pointer and I move it to right there, where the laser dot is going to be the upper left hand corner of my design. So when I frame, it should frame right here beside May, and then it should go back to that location. I'm leaving about a ½ inch standoff between the coated surface and the non-coated surface, just to stay away from that edge. And here we go, and I'm gonna let you watch this frame. It's gonna go over, there you go. So that is gonna be where mine is going to be. Another way that you can do it is you can actually take, and let me change my setup. You can change your starting location in lightburn on the the little square. You can change it to laser current position in the center of the design. This is handy when you're trying to get something in exactly the right location. Let me move it around. Let me find something to aim at here where I can show you. Okay, so if I was trying to go exactly where my last burn Clack Shack logo was, what I would do, I would move my pointer to the center of that Clack Shack logo. I've changed my position of origin on the computer screen, and I'll show you that here in just a second. I've changed it to the center of the work of the burn, and so now I'm going to frame, and it should frame out that Clack Shack logo. I'm going to move you around where you can see it a little better. So now what it's going to do is I've got it set that my laser position is in the center of my graphic, or where I want my graphic to be. So now I'm going to frame and watch what this does. This is the same burn that I did before, so it should frame that exactly. As you can see, it framed my logo exactly the way that it was. All right. Since this is a test cup and it's really not going to hurt anything. I know I'm not going to be able to line this thing up perfectly, guys, but just to show you how you can target where you want your design to be, I'm gonna try to get that as close to the center of that logo as I can, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna change that to a line rather than a engrave, and I'm gonna run it again. 70 speed, 100% output, 1 pass, and I'm just gonna make this a line just to show you that it will put this burn where the other one was. And here we go. So this is how you would set up to target when you're doing tumblers. I know there's a lot of confusion about how do you get it lined up and how do you make it work. You know, people are having trouble with it. It's not that difficult, but I have found through some research that there is some information out there that is not accurate on how I go about setting these things up and how to burn them. So I want you to be able to see what I'm telling you, see it in action, and then I'll show you the settings that I use. Okay, so that burn, and without a camera break, we're gonna move this out of the way. I'm gonna bring this back over here, and I wanna see, you can see, I did a pretty good job of that. You can barely see right there, just around the outer edge, you can see that line. But it did not get out of bounds. Right here, you can see it's a little bit off, maybe, I don't know, 0.5 millimeter off right there. So that is how you target your design to where you want it. We'll do one more little test here, one more little show. I'm gonna take, and you're not gonna be able to see the Sharpie really well because this is a black Sharpie. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna pretend that this was a design and you wanted it on a tumbler, but you wanted it in a specific location. You did not want it, you know, up, down, right, or left. So I'm gonna take my Sharpie here and I'm gonna make me a little dot right here on this tumbler. And you're not gonna be able to see it really well because it is a black Sharpie on a black surface. But there's a little dot right there with my Sharpie. So I'm going to take, and I'm gonna put a circle in my workspace. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do 2 circles. I'm gonna do one 8 millimeters. All right. And I'm going to take that circle, basically, I'm going to use the offset tool. I'm going to come out 1.5 millimeters, make another circle, and then I'm going to change both of those into an engrave. All right, so now, what I need to do now, guys, is I've got my tumbler in there. I've got to bring my gantry back over my tumbler. I'm going to be using my little timing marks that I have on my frame. And I'm going to rotate the tumbler until I get everything lined up with that mark that I just made. And I'm going to move over. And I'm putting my crosshairs, as best I can see through the reflection, I'm putting the crosshairs right on top of that little Sharpie mark. And I'm going to send it. And what I did is I basically painted a circle around the Sharpie mark because I didn't want to destroy the Sharpie mark because y'all would be like, well, you just turned the cup or whatever. So I'm putting a circle around that Sharpie mark as if that was the exact location on that tumbler that you wanted to engrave. And we're going to see how well of a job I did of aiming it and how well the burn looks. I am still running 70 millimeters per second speed at 100% output. I didn't turn my air assist on this time. Forgot. So I like running the air assist to keep debris out of the nozzle. You don't have to turn it on high, but it does help keep the lenses clean. Keep in mind, this machine's over a year old. All right, so I got it engraved. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the crosshair is in the center of that circle that I just drew. And we're gonna pull this guy out of there. And you can see my Sharpie mark right there in the middle of that circle. So, cleanup. A lot of you guys argue about, you know, what's the best cleanup, guys. The cheapest rubbing alcohol you can buy and the cheapest magic eraser you can buy. That is the best thing I have found in a year of doing these things, that is the best I have found for cleaning them. Once you get that cleaned up, there's your circle. Now, if you got a mic out and you measured that circle, I'm confident that it's going to be slightly narrower than it is tall. But without doing a whole lot of math, that's a pretty good little circle. So like I said, stay away from circles and you won't have that concern. But if you do circles, if you're not careful, if your measurements are too bad out of whack, you will have an oblong circle. But there's that. All right, so enough playing around with the cups. I want to go ahead and throw one up here. And I'm going to design this one for my brother, who, as you all know, helps me here in the Clack Shack. He doesn't have any Clack Shack tumblers or anything. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, this is my little trick. Feel free to steal it if you would like. But when you have a tumbler that has, whether it's a Yeti brand or like these, Magellan, Ozark Trail, no matter what it is, the manufacturers, they like to put these little logos on here. Well, I want my logos opposite side of their logos. Well, the way that I keep track of where their logo is I'll use a little piece of painter's tape right here, and then I'll take my Sharpie, because I don't want to mark on the cup, and I'll line that thing up to where I'm looking at the engrave, and I mark it with a line. That way I know where their logo is. So when I'm setting this up, all I've got to do is set it down on there, come around here, make sure that the line I just made is pointed straight down, and I'm on the opposite side of the logo that they made. So I'm going to throw my logo into this burn, do a little work to it, and we will be back momentarily. All right, guys, I've got the burn set up, got it ready to engrave. The secret to this one is this is going to be a little bit of a longer, taller burn. So I'm going to change my starting location to the top of the design. That way I know that wherever I put that at, the design is going to start directly below that and go this way. So I'm going to pull my gantry back over here to my little predetermined location. I'm going to take and I'm going to pull up here, and I'm going to leave myself probably about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or so between the painted and unpainted surface right there. I'm going to go back, double check, and make sure that my timing mark that shows me where my logo is on the back is directly down. Being as this is a light color, I'm going to be running 60 as my speed on this one instead of 70 millimeters per second. All right, so I'm changing that to 60 millimeters per second. I've also changed my starting point to the middle dot on the right side, and we're going to go over that in a minute on the computer. So don't get too surprised or freaked out if you don't get to see it just yet. But I want my engrave to begin about right here and go this way, because this is going to be a Clack Shack logo as well as a name. So before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to frame that out just to make sure I haven't overestimated the size of this engrave. That's a little bigger than I want it, so I'm going to downsize that just a fuzz. Not changing anything other than the size of the engrave, and I'm going to frame it again. All right, I'm going to double check and make sure doing all that framing didn't mess with my timing mark here, because sometimes when you do that back and forth a lot, you'll have a little movement on the rollers. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is still lined up like it's supposed to be. And like I said, power settings is 60 at 100, and I'm going to go ahead and start that thing up. You will possibly get this cut might be out of bounds warning. Just hit continue anyway, as long as you're confident you don't have any like hidden graphics anywhere that you need to be aware of. But I'm going to let this burn for a few minutes. All right, guys, it's wrapping up on this one, and it's about to go home there. And so we're gonna see what this one done. This material has gave me fits over the years. But that's what it looks like straight off of the laser. So fixed to put some alcohol on here and clean it up and see if I got all of it off that time. All right, a little rubbing alcohol, a little magic eraser. Just making sure I get in all the little crevices and all that on the material. All right, let me get some a clean rag and some Windex now. All right, a little glass cleaner and a nice cloth rag here to kind of clean up the mess made from the magic eraser and the alcohol. Of course, this will get washed also, but this is just to show you guys the result there. So there's a result, nice and sparkly clean. Like I said, if you put a measuring tape on that guy, I can almost bet you that it's slightly smaller this way than it is this way, because anywhere on this cup, the way that it's sitting in there like that, the gear ratio, basically what it boils down to, is going to be different depending on where you're at. So I try to just get it as close as possible and stay away from circles when I can. But unfortunately, I did not know that when I built my logo, and so it's always a circle. But Bull's going to have something to drink his coffee and his tea out of when he's over here working now. I mentioned to him about doing a video about tumblers, and he apparently wanted one, so there you go. All right, guys, now that we have proof of concept and can kind of prove to you that this approach works, like I said, within tolerances. Like I said, if you wanted to make sure that your circles were perfect circles, there's going to be a little more math to be done, because even with the XTool, the way that it's set up, you've got basically 3 different locations that you can set your material to. The measurements on the machine are pretty close as far as keeping it from compressing the image or whatnot, but it's not that much. I run mine usually on the number 2 setting, and it goes out from 1 to 2 to 3. And if you look on there, it has the different measurements of the circumference of whatever it is you're doing, and that's what they recommend to try to prevent as much of the squishing as possible. And if you want to look also, guys, there's the logo. That's my mark for the logo that's on the other side of this cup. And so I managed to position it to where the little brand is on the other side. So now that I've proven to you that the technique works and the setup works, I'm going to move over to the computer and I'm going to kind of show you the settings, show you what needs to be in what boxes to have these results. And like I said, you can sit there and play with the numbers and change the steps and change the millimeters per rotation, and you could possibly get perfect circles on this surface, but you're going to spend a lot of time setting up to do this burn. Now, if you've got 100 of these to do, then absolutely, it's worth it. Take some notes, change the settings. I mean, that's what you need to do. But if you're just doing a one-off and you don't know exactly where to dial those up, you know, this is like I said, I run this as stock settings, and I'm going to do another one in a little bit that's a little bit bigger, but I'm going to use the same settings. So we're going to move over to the machine, and I'll show you how to set up the XTool roller. I'm going to show you some information that I found out there that is not accurate, and show you the information that I used to do this. All right, guys, here we are in Lightburn. Promised you I would show you the settings that I'm running, and that way you could replicate those if you want. Here's the rotary setup. These are recommendations that I found on XTool support site as far as the you're going to want to, for this particular rotary, you're going to want to go to roller, and then enable rotary and 32 millimeters per rotation. That is according to XTool support and help page. Also, the roller diameter, you're going to want to set that to 17. And this is basically the value of the diameter of the object that you're engraving. And it'll help give you the circumference. So once that is done, all you've really got to do is this little switch right here enables the rotary and disables the rotary. And all of the other buttons does exactly what they would normally do. The only thing that you're going to want to change is go up here instead of the absolute coordinates. Make sure you put this on current position, and then you can move this location if you want it in the center of your engrave. Like right now, you can see the green dot is in the center of my engrave. The green dot signifies where the laser is going to start on your engrave. So if you wanted to try to aim at a specific point, then you could use the center right here. If you wanted, like for this engrave, I used top center, which would be right here. That moves my little green dot to there. Wherever your laser is pointing is going to be that little green dot, which is going to be the center of your design. So that's pretty helpful if you're trying to, like if the edge of the tumbler is up here and you're trying to stay down off of it, rather than use the center, it might actually be easier to use the top here. Same thing goes if you're, wanting to do this on the bottom and you're close to the bottom, then you could actually change it to here, and it's going to move the location of your laser to the very bottom of the design, and that can be helpful in alignment and figuring out exactly where you want it to be. But for those pinpoint and for a lot of situations, as long as the design is not too oversized, center is probably the easiest one to use, is to just go with the start from the center right here. But make sure you have the current position set. And also, you're going to want to have your rotary enabled, of course. And with the XTool D1, it plugs into the bottom of the machine. And once again, guys, that's the settings that I ran on those engraves. In case you want to write that down, screenshot that, whatever you want to do. But that information is available on XTool's website under the support. But I found some contradicting documentation also that showed like 360 millimeters, which I knew was crazy. So I just kept digging until I found the 32. I typically in the past, I have always used LaserBox Basic to do tumblers. It wasn't until recently when I got a rotary for a different machine that I got into using lightburn with rotaries. And it can seem a bit intimidating. And if you get these numbers here wrong, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a train wreck, guys. So make sure that these numbers are set accurately. And like I said, there are ways that you can, because when you move these rollers, it changes the dynamics of the way this thing works. But from my experience, these numbers, it's a good happy medium. It's not always going to be exact, but it'll be very, very close and within pretty good tolerances. So that's the software end of it. And as far as where you put your design in your workspace, guys, it really does not matter. Typically, I like to do it in the center just because, it just makes sense. Because your laser is operating under the assumption that it is located wherever this green dot is. So, when you set this thing to current position, it really doesn't matter where the laser head is. It's going to start from there. And when you click these little green dots right here, you're basically telling the laser, you are here. Here is my design. And so it's going to say, okay, I'm going to go from here, and it's going to burn that. So you can use these to make it easy on yourself for alignment. And it's really not that intimidating, guys. It's really not hard. So I hope that helps out. And I know a lot of you guys have been asking me about this and asking about lightburn. And there's a lot of tutorials on, how to do it that are out there. And I think sometimes maybe there's a little bit too much information goes into it, especially for somebody that's just starting out. You just want to be able to turn out a product. Like I said, stay away from circles though. If that little bit of skew bothers you, stay away from circles, because depending on the size of the tumbler, the spacing of the rollers, you may get some of that. So if it happens, don't yell at me. I told you it might happen. All right, guys, recap. Black tumblers with a 10-watt diode. My recommendation, 70 millimeters per second, 100% output, and clean it with alcohol, cheapest alcohol you can buy, and the cheapest magic erasers you can buy. Lighter colors, such as this light brown, blues, especially blues. Blues and whites reflect way more light than any of the other colors. So you're gonna have to slow way down. This one I ran at 60 because I've experienced with these things. I knew that it wasn't quite as bad as white and everything. So I slowed it down to 60, and that's what I got. 60 millimeters per second, 100% output. It's just as shiny, just as clean as the unfinished part of the top. So whites, blues, yellows, anything that blue, like, you know, yellow and blue make green, anything that reflects blue light, guys, you're going to want to slow it down to probably around 50 millimeters per second at 100% output on a 10-watt. Now, if you're using a 20-watt, it's going to be, you know, you can go a lot faster. You can get away with a little more speed. If you're using a 5-watt, you're going to have to really pump the brakes because this stuff can be stubborn. Some manufacturers more than others. I use primarily, these are the Academy Sports Magellan tumblers, Walmart's Ozark Trails. Those settings are effective on them. And also the Hassel Outfitters, which is these guys. These are the ones I use on bulk orders. I order these off Amazon. You can get them in like different size boxes. These settings that I'm telling you are effective on those. Red, black, those are the red, black, those are like the great colors to engrave. Red looks really good, comes off clean. White, if you go slow, you can do a really good job on white. Now, if you're trying to do images or any kind of shading, I do recommend the white because you can actually dial the power down on white and you can stain it gray or stain it black so that if you're trying to do an image, you can do shading. But that's something you're going to want to play with because the settings are a little finicky to get everything dialed in just right. But everybody had kept asking me about tumblers, and guys, I apologize, but I did a boatload of tumblers when I first got my 10-watt. That was one of the things that I used to pay my 10-watt off. I was doing orders of 40 or 50 tumblers a week in my off time. And so I got a little burnt out on the tumblers, and I've kind of backed away from that a little bit. I found other ways of making money without having to buy a $10, $15 tumbler, or, you know, these are a little cheaper. But so I have found ways of using less expensive material and still making money. So that's kind of where I've been leaning lately. But there was enough people messaging me and asking questions about tumblers. So I felt like it was time to break out the rotary again and pass some information along to you guys. I do have another rotary coming that I ordered off of Amazon. Should be here around December the 1st. And I've got some projects lined up that I'll be doing with it. So we're going to be touching back on rotaries again as soon as that thing gets here. But until then, guys, I hope this suffices for those of you that had questions. I hope it was helpful. And if it was helpful, or if it wasn't helpful or entertaining or whatever, give me a thumbs up down there, guys. You can share the video. If you have any questions, or anybody in any of the groups that you are in on Facebook or whatever has questions, shoot them the video. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and you can catch some more later on about the other rotary that I've got ordered. So I'm going to call it a night. So for tonight, that's all we're going to do. And until next time, guys, as always, be safe and have a good day.